And honestly, I didn't cancel a thing. We went on like a camping trip one weekend. We went to birthday parties. I would like went out for my like a date night or that sort of thing. Obviously, the world is a little less busy for some of us as
Hmm.
the pandemic is, petering, but it still didn't feel like I had to give things up because I was just very consistent with the hours of my day that I had allotted for this. And then I didn't feel obligated the rest of the time. Like I said, it was extra credit if I was going to put more time in after that.
Welcome to episode 106 of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Nate, and in today's interview, you're going to hear me talk with Molly. Now, Molly really crushed the CPA exams. So this interview came about because she had just sent me kind of a thank you email saying, I passed the CPA exams. It took me right at 6 months using your program. So thank you, that kind of a thing. So I, asked her if she wanted to be on the podcast. And so we set up an interview. Once we get on the interview, towards the end of the interview, which you'll see, I realized or, figured out that not only did she pass in 6 months, but she scored in the mid to high 90s on all 4 exams. And this was following our program to the letter, which means she was only spending 2 hours a day on her main study course, with her main review course. So she got really incredible results. So this is an interview you're going to really want to listen to twice or maybe even 3 times, because whatever she says, you can use to dramatically improve your own study process. So Molly's interview is definitely one you do not want to skip. So before we get into the interview, 2 things I want to mention. First is our free study training webinars. This is the same with every other interview. This is where Molly started with SuperfastCPA. So these are 1-hour trainings where we walk through our core study strategies and how it's so different from the normal way of studying, where you watch every video lecture, read every chapter, then go into the practice questions, and really the why as to why that's so ineffective for so many people. As you know, the pass rates across the board are just right around 50%. So those free trainings just give you a very clear overview of what we are about and how it can change your study process. So you can sign up for one of those free trainings at our main website at SuperfastCPA.com, the main thing at the top of the homepage, or the link will be down in the description of this episode. The second thing is our free podcast giveaway. So each month we give away 3 pairs of PowerBeat Pro headphones. The idea being that, especially with audio, you can be studying while you're doing other, normal everyday things like preparing meals, walking the dog while you exercise. And then obviously whenever you're in your car, while you're trying to get these exams passed, you should be listening to CPA audio. So to sign up for that, the free giveaway, that link will be down in the description as well. So with that out of the way, let's get into the interview with Molly. Yeah, so, okay, you've heard a bunch of these. So let me just start with, I pulled up your email, that original email. As
Oh,
far
great.
as I
Okay.
know, yeah, I don't think you had sent me emails during the process, really. Is that
No, I
correct?
didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what happens a lot is someone, buys the program,
Mhm.
watches everything, starts, passes, and most of the time, I don't hear anything. I know I don't.
Uh,
It's just those
yeah.
emails in passing, like stuff like that, where you sent me
Mhm.
just saying like thanks or whatever. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you did that, and now we're gonna hear your whole story.
Awesome. Great.
So you did it in exactly 6 months. Oh, you
Yeah,
know what?
it was wild to the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I used your email in we started a promotion, and I was like, that was the point of the email originally, was
Mhm.
it's gonna be July 1st. There's still enough time to pass. And
Right,
you honestly
gotcha.
sent me in that email a few days after that.
How funny.
Say
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so let's just start with the very beginning. Like when you decided, well, why did you decide to get your CPA? Did you originally try it right after school, or what's been your whole process?
No, it was a long, slow process for me, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do and ending up in accounting. So I graduated college in 2010 with a bachelor's in sociology. Went to work for a nonprofit, an educational nonprofit, which is exactly what I thought I was going to be doing. And we were a startup started by a fellow alum from my college and constantly struggled with money and managing it and figuring out how to project things and all of that. So I ended up falling into financial management for the organization because I could deal with spreadsheets, and then moved on. When I left that organization, I called our then accountant, just letting them know, here's your new contact, and got hired to work at the firm that I'm at now, which is a small firm only working for nonprofits. So we do accounting there. So I kind of backed into it. I fell in love after that first year. So by 2016, I was working there, started taking night classes remotely just through the UC system. And really liked it, but I had to do it slowly because I was working, I had a baby, I just did one at a time, and then 5 years into that, I'd finally caught myself up since this was not what I went to school for at all, and, was ready. I'd done all the educational requirements by December of 2021, and I got my passing grade, and I immediately started studying the CPA because I was just ready to this was like the finish line now, we were getting there
Yeah,
finally. Yep.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you kind of, I don't know, that's slightly different than someone who's in their bachelor's and just at some point is like, well, I'm in business. Some counselor tells you eventually, well, if you want something more specific than just business,
Right.
accounting includes all that and accounting. And then,
Right.
yeah, you actually being interested in it is, I don't know, slightly different than the normal process, I would say.
That
So,
makes sense.
h- yeah, the CPA study process, how did that start exactly?
Um, so I was very used to self-study at that point. I've been taking all these classes online. I kind of knew, like, I hadn't forgotten how to study. I know a lot of people come back to it and they, haven't done that in a while, but kind of knew what I was looking for. So I started Googling, different ways that people, different programs and whatnot. I found SuperfastCPA CPA very quickly. I didn't wander around to do other things. I watched your webinar and I was like, "Yep, this is the fit for me. This is exactly kind of sounds like my go-to style. I like the principles of how this framework sounds. Like, let's do it." So, I actually started with you, bought the study materials, and then again, I you know, slammed a lot of those podcasts in the beginning and went with your recommendation to test out softwares. So I was specifically looking for like which software will give me that instant access to MCQs. I knew I didn't want to watch videos and I didn't ever watch videos. Spoiler alert, I just
Nice.
didn't.
Yeah.
And I wanted one where as soon as I got something wrong, I could read a really good description of what would work, what the answer should have been to cut out any, like, "Oh, now I have to go hunt it down." So, I just went with that. I tried out 3 or 4, picked my one, and, that was it. I just got started. I started on December 6th. That was my first study day, and I had this little visual tracker where I'd, like, color in each day that I did a 2-hour session from your methodology, and then, yeah, was off to the races. I did not really hear from that course. I was like, "This is what we're doing." So, I dove right in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so you don't really have a time span where you were kind of struggling doing it the normal way. You just started with this right off the bat.
Yes. I will say, that first one, of course, for everybody, I'm sure, it was kind of like, "Okay, let's see how this goes. Can I pass the first exam now that I've done it your way?" I think I spent 5 weeks for the first one. I started with reg, which I am not a tax person, so I was like, "I just wanna try this really hard one that I feel completely not confident about and see how it goes."
Mhm.
Um but it worked great. So I was like, "Okay, easy, like, test is done. Now I can just repeat, just keep doing it and trust the process." which worked extremely well for me and took all the concerns out. I've done things in my life where I'm like, oh, I want to run a 5K. Like, what's the best method? And then I mess around and try 3 different things. It's kind of frustrating. What was nice is just you take your method, it worked for me, and then I just put my faith in it and stopped wondering, is there a better way? Is
Yeah.
there something I should do? Which took so much time out, so much worry. So I'm very appreciative for that. Just to have something I could, stick the course with.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. Uh, so what about, I had a few questions that came in my mind when you were saying that, but I forgot them all. The, so when you watched, I know what it was. So you went in and watched the pro videos, it sounds like. So
Nope,
you knew the full method all the way,
I did
or you
not.
just, oh, oh, okay.
I got so much out of these podcasts. That's why I'm like, I want to share what I can here. Um, no, I watched your webinar, like, the
Hmm.
opening thing. I bought the materials package.
The
So
study
the
tools. Okay.
review notes, study tools, excuse me. But not the pro courses. I just got all these little drifts of how people had done it and what you recommended through your free stuff.
Nice.
Yep.
That's, yeah. I I don't know. In the beginning, after I recorded the first few interviews, I was kind of thinking like, I essentially, if someone, it's pretty easy to piece the whole process together listening to these. And
Mm,
so at one point I was like, yeah, that's going to make people think they don't need the pro course. And then I thought, that's not that big of a deal. Like, there's some people that just hear the ideas. Like sometimes
mhm.
it's just the word, like re-review. Like one
Yep.
interview, this guy was like, "Okay, when I just watched your free webinar and heard you say re-review, I
Mhm.
instantly knew what that meant, and, like, it was like a light bulb went off."
Right,
And then
powerful light bulb, agreed. Yeah. I think
uh,
I made a widget on my phone. I took off all social media. I was like, "Here's my, free brain space." I made a little
mhm,
widget though, just a text widget of, I think, like, 6 talking points I had heard you say of, like, kind of the key things to remember about how the process works, and I would just see it every time I turn on my phone. I'd see, like, spend 80-20% of your time, do your mini sessions during the day, all this stuff, and just it helped me stay on track when I'd sit down and be like, okay, I'm not just blindly sitting. I'm trying to do the actual method. Yeah, that really helped. And yeah, it's super valuable. I mean, everything you've built in the kind of sphere of the things that you offer was helpful to me in different times. I just had to refer back to it and kind of build my skills to
yeah,
follow the system.
that's funny you mentioned the little bullet points because,
Mhm.
in the pro course, like, there's a pro forum, and that's one of the
Yeah.
posts that I pinned in there. I'm
Oh,
like, "If
uh-huh.
you're ever wondering about the whole process, there's like the big 4 strategies. If you're doing
Mhm.
these 4 things as part of your daily routine, it's hard to screw this up." So, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Mhm.
So my other question was, one of the main things I hear is people really, when they hear the questions first idea and
Mm.
you can more or less forget about the video lectures. Um, it's a big mental block for a lot of people. Like, they want to score well. Like, if they're gonna do questions
Oh,
at all,
yeah.
they want to, like, score well,
Mm.
and that's one of the things I'm always talking people out of. Like, "Okay, you're in your house, you're not being this isn't scored." Well, I mean, the software tells you, how you're doing, but
Yeah.
your first time through a lesson, there's 0 consequence. It's just the best way to learn what you're gonna see on test day from this topic. So, did you have
Yeah.
any struggles with that idea?
Well, totally. Yeah, that just rings all the bells for me. Yes, it's very hard, especially if you're like a high achiever in college or you used to, doing well at work or all these things. It's hard to just be a beginner again and totally own that and yeah, even in the silence of your own study room. Yes, I had to unlearn the desire to do it first because it takes up time. You're sitting there, you're staring at it, you're like, "Oh, I think I remember something about this, but I can't quite which one is it?" 3, 4 minutes go by, that's like a big chunk of a 2-hour study session, so I tamped that down, I got better at not doing that, realizing when I didn't know the answer to something, just, submitting it anyway and learning from it, and that's why I wanted
Yeah.
it to be I literally wanted it to pop up and immediately tell me, kind of keeps that disappointment of, oh, I got it wrong down. You can be like, oh yeah, okay, got it. Now I'll read this and understand. It was some unlearning for sure. It is not easy to do. Um, and I kind of went back and forth. So I would do, mostly I was doing multiple choice. And then I actually realized that for me, I would start multiple choice, then start reading some of the chapters. I read to learn a lot. That's kind of been my style. So I did read the books that came with my study course, my outside study course, and then just kept doing the re-review on top of that. So I eventually would read straight material and integrate it. But once I started getting through those, like I would go get it through it, read it really fast, like you're just kind of trying to get your eyes over the material. Then the multiple choice paired with writing note cards was the core essence of what I was doing. Um, I would kind of get through everything once, not all multiple choice, just all the reading once. And then as soon as I had done that, if I started hitting things I wasn't getting, I'd make note cards. And I wrote them all in pencil because sometimes you kind of get it and you can kind of write something to yourself, but by the time you hit it the third time, you're way better at understanding it and describing it
Hmm.
to yourself. So I'd erase, what I had originally said and like write a better description or turn it into a picture or whatever it took, for me to kind of click it. So those note cards got kind of ratty over time, but very powerful. And you'd like weed them out after you started not needing them anymore. You get your little pack by the end and really good. I also wrote tons of notes on I'd print out the review, what do you call them?
Just review notes.
Yeah, the review
Yeah.
notes. I print
Hmm.
those out and just, write all over them and all of that. So taking it from a lot of MCQ on my phone to like in my hand pen. My mom used to say that there's bashers and swoopers in the world, people of how people tackle problems or work. So, like, bashers, they won't move on until they 100% understand something the first time. Like, they just keep bashing at it. And I don't think you can do the CPA that way, personally. I think you
Right.
have to be a swooper. You have to come in, you kinda get it, then you, like, get a little deeper the next time, then you, like, listen to the audio, you pair it with some MCQs, you come back and do the terrible time where you're just like, "I'm gonna only do MCQs I've done before that I got wrong," and, like, filter that way. You just kind of, like, come at it from all these different angles, and it builds your content of knowledge in a way better way, but not any slower, just less frustrating, I found.
Yeah, I mean, in layers, right? Like,
Yep,
that's kind of the way that I say it to people all the time.
exactly.
You learn
Yep,
this in layers. That's the only way
mhm.
you can do it.
I think it's
And
the
yeah,
only way. I agree. Yep.
yeah, yeah, going back to that, I mean, when you talk it out, the normal process, you're more or less trying to master a lesson up front, but then you
Yeah,
don't
that's what the
look at it
software
again
wants you
for
to do.
months. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that makes no sense. The exams are just way too big.
Yeah,
It just
they're
covers
way
way
too
too
big.
much material. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely, yeah, agreed. I found that to be the case.
Yeah. So on your flashcards, how
Mhm.
many, or I guess first, you said you would kind of save that for like the daily re-review for when you'd miss something several times, or what was your, when did you primarily make the flashcards?
Yeah, I didn't wanna make flashcards the very first time I hit something I didn't know because there was a lot of things I
Yeah.
didn't know, like that reg exam, I knew I didn't know a lot. Um And it just felt like, of course I don't know it. I'm not gonna write it down the very first time I've seen it. I wanna write down the things that are hard to remember, hard to. So I went through all the reading and overlapped that with the rave reviews and then, additional MCQs for each chapter that I hit. And then once I had done that all once, then I'd go back and say, okay, now anything from here on out, anything I'm not hitting that I don't understand, I still don't get, or I'm still getting wrong on the MCQs. Now I'll write the note cards. And then those note
Yeah.
cards, I would come back to. I'd say, oh, shoot, I remember I wrote that note card about that thing, but now I totally get it. So I'd go find the note card, like, correct how I had written it the first time to something way easier to understand. Or if there was just a really good example, I needed no words. I just needed the formula or something. I'd go back and just erase the whole thing and say, this is the how I know I'm going to need to remember because that's how every MCQ is structured, that kind of, again, layered learning about what is it they're going to
Yeah.
ask? What do I know? What am I most comfortable with? Yeah, kind of build it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a huge argument for, the way you put that. Just the whole re-review thing. Again, when you explain that out, it just it makes so much sense that it just sounds so obvious, but again, that's not how most people approach this. But then
Yeah.
seeing questions multiple times, like, later down the road, and you've built all this understanding in other areas, and it
Yep.
just for some reason, makes sense on, like, a new level, where that would not happen if, again, back to the traditional approach, you've
Right.
only covered this one time, and then you try
Hmm.
to do a final review. Yeah.
Definitely. Agreed.
So about how many flashcards would you end up with per exam?
Um, well, I try to will it down. I want to be able to bring a little pack with me and sit in the car before the test and like finish my coffee
Mhm.
and look over them. So I didn't want more than, 20, 25 in my hand. But I had lots. I just recently pulled them all out, made a little pile. I'm like, I'm gonna have a bonfire in my backyard to celebrate not needing these ever again.
Yeah.
So there's a lot over time. I think there's something, that old study where it says if you write it down, it really gives you that connection. You've talked about that. That's so true. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like that's true for any kind of learner at any age. So I didn't mind writing them a lot and then just kind of ditching them when I didn't need that topic anymore. I was already feeling confident in it.
Yeah. And that's, I did mine on, Brainscape back or at the time, and
Mhm.
you could just score those, like, there was a color system. So in the app, if you mark
Mhm.
something green, it's like, "I've answered this right. I know this one. You can show this
Yep.
less," you know? Just that general idea. And then I would
Yep.
have my sets of red and yellows for, like, the
Yeah.
last 3 days before an exam, just the same
Right.
idea. You can
Yep.
kinda whittle it down,
Exactly.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
What about practice sims? When did you use those in your study process?
Yeah. Well, for the first exam, because I had never done it before, I was pretty heavy on them. I tried to actually work through them. Again, reminding myself it's okay if you don't know it, just either plug something in or leave it blank and like move on. You got to move on. That got easier with time. It really will. If you're new to this, it feels super uncomfortable, but it does get easier. Um, but by the fourth exam, I mean, I was so ready to be done. I chose BC for my last one. I got COVID during my studying. I'd only left myself 4 weeks in the first place for how long I wanted to give it. Um, and I knew that I just needed to know what kinds of sims they were even going to show me. So I set my course to give me all of them in one quiz. Like I was going to take 15 sims, in one
Mm,
practice quiz, just so I could flip through them. That's all I did
yeah,
on my last one. By that time, I worked my way down. I would like heavier in the beginning. What is a sim about? How does it work? What kind of things are they asking? And then over the course of those 4 tests, by the end, I just needed to know what am I in for? What broad strokes things are they going to be asking? And then really relied on the MCQ to teach me the full content of whatever I was going to be faced in those. Yeah.
yeah. That's just another perfect description really of, yeah, how it's supposed to work. Again, most people it's kind of the assumption that's built into review courses where people feel like I need to be able to start a sim and fill it out and then
Hmm.
see how I did. Where it's much faster to, if you're stuck in the first 10 seconds, just submit it
Hmm.
and reverse engineer it and then cover up the solution after you've seen how it's explained and see if
Hmm.
you can do it after that.
Yeah, that's a
And
good.
instead of spending 20 minutes on the front end,
Yeah.
thinking you're filling it out and then finding out you did it wrong,
Hmm.
you times that across 6 weeks or whatever. It's just
So
so
much.
much time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew once I got through that first exam, I set the goal of doing it in 6 months. I didn't know how it was going to go. I kind of used that first one as like, well, we're just going to see how it goes. But I just wanted to be done. This was years in the making. I really
Mhm.
wanted that CPA designation to finally kind of get to the end of a road and move on with my life, with some other goals. And having that framework helped too, because it then you couldn't waste time, right? It was completely in my head. Nobody needs to do it in 6 months necessarily, but
Yeah.
from the get go. But it just meant I was like, I can't. I'm not going to waste time doing things. I have to let go of that desire to get it right or the ego behind getting it, you know, getting the little softwares. Oh, you completed another quiz, just gotta.
Right. Yeah. And so what did a day of studying look like? Would you just do the 2 hours in the morning or you just yeah.
Yeah. So about 6 days a week, I would usually take one weekend day, make my husband, take my kiddo and let me sleep in. But I would get up at 5, which is not my usual time. That's way earlier than usual. But I'd set the alarm, come do a 2-hour session in our guest room here, and just kind of got used to that. The brutal reality of trying to find extra time in your day when you're already a busy person. But
Mhm.
I I trusted the fact that it did make more sense to do it first thing in the morning. I did not
Yeah.
wanna do it at the end of the day. Sometimes, you're traveling or whatnot, you have to do it later. But man, those 2 hours, essential, like, that was a lot of new learning and big chunks of I would do meaty stuff there, but the mini sessions,
Yeah.
were constant. I had my phone all the time. I'd be at my son's swimming class doing one, I'd be, waiting at the grocery store in line, I'd do a few, that sort of thing. I tried to set myself up so that I could switch between using your quizzes, which are already these quick 5, question thing, and then in the app for my other study course, I would pre-set up a quiz in the morning. So at the end of my session, I'd do my 30 MCQs, say, okay, great. Like I did that chunk. Now I'm going to set up another 15 question quiz. So I don't have to set it up, go through like which filter do I want, et cetera. I just wanted it ready, ready, ready.
Yeah.
So I would always kind of set myself up to remove any barrier possible that would make it harder later. I would read those notes, usually at night, like you suggested. Sometimes I just needed to, like, not be on my phone for a while, so I'd use the printouts as a break from that, and then I listened to audio. I mean, even, like, in the shower, I'd turn it on really loud and listen in the shower in the morning or on my way
Mm.
to and from preschool, just fill in all
Yeah.
the other times. I love the audio because it felt easy, but it was actually, um that's when a lot of light bulbs went off, when
Yeah.
you, like, understood something your own way by kind of reading it or doing a practice question, but then you come back and you hear your voice, explain it, and it's just from a slightly different angle. You say, "Okay, I got it." So, I use that all the time. I listen to each one probably, like, 6 times through, in the course
Nice.
of the study weeks that I was doing that particular section. So, did all the
Yeah,
above,
that's yeah. And it's huge just I mean, I don't know I can't describe it like a neuroscientist would, but it's something about kind of like what you said, getting the info in different formats and even different settings throughout the day. There's a bunch of research on that, like the whole retrieval learning thing.
That makes sense to
Um,
me, yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the time thing. It just makes sense okay, these exams are a complete nightmare for some people. And you should be doing, if you're going to pay the money, you bought a review
Yeah.
course, you're spending time anyways, fill up like every possible second and being
Yeah.
able to do that on your phone. It just makes sense. And it helps you add in 2, 3 hours a day extra, which is like 100 plus
Yeah.
extra hours that you wouldn't have
So
otherwise.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it'll just pay off.
You said that neuroscience thing. I read years ago that if you have trouble with, it's this delayed satisfaction thing. So if you put something in your Amazon cart, but you don't buy it, you just leave it there, you get the same like dopamine hit basically as actually purchasing that item. So you just leave it there overnight and you can decide in the morning. So what I would do is I had a list on my phone of all the things I wanted to do with spare time that I didn't have time for. And I would just add to that list. I'd be like, I'm gonna learn Spanish again. I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm gonna write this novel down that I want to read. And it actually helped. It was motivating. And I could go back and see, like, oh, I'm so excited to do all those things. And also it sort of took the pressure off of like constant disappointment that you didn't have time for those things. And you could say, no, what I'm doing right now is studying. Those things will wait. Like I will do all of those things. I have not forgotten about any of them because they're on my list. So yeah, it helped a lot with the that daily instant gratification versus long-term gratification battle that inevitably
Yeah.
ensues with a long-term project like this. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's the first time I've heard that specific thing, but that's a good idea. Um, would you just do that in like like the notes app on your phone or
I
something?
actually kept it in my calendar. So
Okay.
for 6 months, I had this calendar item every day that said "after exams." That was the title of it, and then I would just add to it. It's a pretty long list now, and now I finally get to go, do some of them since I just finished in June, but, um, it's like, a little less tangible version of your reward system, which I also tried to bake
Mhm.
in. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do these things," and broke it into sections for each one. But this one felt like I could immediately do it. I was like out of my head, don't have to feel, mad and upset that I can't do that with my time. So yeah, it's always on my calendar throughout that
That's
whole six
funny.
months. Yeah.
Um, Man, I had my next question ready. Uh, oh, so the evenings.
Mhm,
So you studied in the morning, you did the standard 2-hour thing in the morning, and then
mhm.
mini sessions throughout the day. And so were you able to kind of enjoy the evenings to a certain degree or not have to worry about studying a ton?
Yeah. I would usually pull up my phone to maybe do a quiz or something in the
Mhm.
evening. My son would go down to bed like 8 p.m., so the rest of the night was kind of my own, which it really did make it feel more balanced. I could spend time with my husband, like, watch our show or whatever. Um, if, he was doing something, like I said, I might do another quiz or look at the notes, but the idea in my head was that it was not required. That was kind of
Yeah.
extra credit to put that time in. So, um, it didn't feel arduous to do it that way. Yeah. No, we basically
Yeah.
did that. And honestly, I didn't cancel a thing. We went on like a camping trip one weekend. We went to birthday parties. I would like went out for my like a date night or that sort of thing. Obviously, the world is a little less busy for some of us as
Mhm.
the pandemic is, petering, but it still didn't feel like I had to give things up because I was just very consistent with the hours of my day that I had allotted for this. And then I didn't feel obligated the rest of the time. Like I said, it was extra credit if I was going to put more time in after that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the nice thing about it's I talk a lot about how yeah, you can pass the exams and still have a life type thing.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
does require to be that you're highly disciplined.
Yeah.
Um but then by the evenings, you've put in I mean the 2 hours depending on the mini sessions, maybe 4 to 5 total hours and you can just yeah, take a complete mental break and if you've nailed the studying, that's almost just as important as the studying itself, just to have that
Definitely.
not feel like your entire life is work, study, stress out about studying.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, taking out the stress by committing to a system that, once that first exam was done, like I said, it was a proven system for me. It took the stress out of wondering. Even like that last exam, like I said, I only had 4 weeks. One of those was gone to COVID. I had this very interesting moment where I said, I'm just going to presume that I am doing the same things I've been doing and that it's going to be fine. I didn't think about extending it. I was like, no, I'm just keeping my original date and trusting that it's going to be fine. Even though, I'm like part of these Facebook groups of other people, especially moms studying for CPAs. And half the battle is just getting through your own stress over it and worry about whether you've done enough. Should I do it sooner or later and all of that? I 100% understand that. And I just didn't want it. I didn't want that for myself. So it was nice to let it go and do enough of the work in the same sequence of events, right, for 4 different exams that, you don't have to carry that additional burden of stress.
yeah, yeah, there is. That's a huge factor. I don't. It's like the study process itself, or just
Mhm.
kind of this general anxiety about the whole thing. And yeah, when you know you have your process down to a science, that's all goes away, and it's really just as long as you put in the time each day,
Yep.
it's just relatively simple after you
Mhm.
get to that point.
Yes, agreed.
So you passed the last section with like 3 weeks of studying basically, was that BEC?
Yeah, basically 3 weeks of studying. Um, yeah, I took the exam on June 6th, so that was exactly 6 months after that first day that I marked on my little tracker, and, I passed. So it was done. It was a done deal.
Mm,
Um, and it felt so good. I mean, it was such a relief, and, I'm somebody who likes to make goals. I think a lot of us who are, setting for the CPA set that goal for ourselves. You can choose
mhm.
other paths, but we're that kind of people. So it was nice to be like, okay, fresh path, new time. We can like, go on to the next thing. So it felt really good, and I was so happy to be done. So
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, just the biggest relief in the world. It's not
It
like
is.
maybe not my happiest moment, but like as far as just a relief, by far, just such a
Yeah,
relief. So
really.
nice.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So one question I have about going back to your very first exam and you're kind of thinking, I'll just try this out, see if this works. So towards the end of your study time or your study timeline, closer to the exam, do you remember what you were scoring on sets of 30? Just as
Yeah.
a
Definitely. I actually went back and kind of checked that for myself a few times of like, how does this work, over the different exams? Um, so that first exam, like I said, was basically I was learning a lot of new content that I hadn't heard since early accounting classes, the few ones about tax that you have to do. And I was scoring probably in the 80s consistently. And then I got to a point where right before the exam, I told myself, I feel like I don't need to keep doing these over and over. Like that last week, I was like, I feel pretty confident that I have got enough of this.
Mm,
And in that range, I was hitting 80, 85 every time I would take a quiz. I wasn't having
yeah,
bad quizzes anymore. But that was really the only exam where that happened. Every other one, maybe my confidence just gave it a boost. I didn't feel like I had to get, every single one to an A grade. I was getting 75 average. So
yeah,
I wouldn't really worry about it if I was getting less, more than 75. That was good enough to pass. I mean, and pass higher
right.
than that. I was passing in the 90s with my scores. So it wasn't, I didn't have to have those 90s in the practice to get to that point for me.
That's that's those are high scores. 90s, that's high.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not doing I mean, I swear, like people winning the Elijah Watt Award or whatever it's called, that
Oh,
where they score
yeah.
like
That's
96s.
like I
Like,
think you have to have 95
yeah,
or average. I don't have that. I think my highest was a 96 on FAR and my lowest was a 93 on 2 of the other ones. Um, which is so funny to me because
that's
I know
crazy.
I
That's a high score.
yeah, it was. It was way higher than I was expecting because I'm not this is not what I went to this is not where I started, my education. I'm more of a writer and, all of that sort of thing. So it was very interesting testing myself in this different way. Um, but I think it's more about study skills than intellect. It's not about that. It's just
Yeah,
I think anybody can do well enough, certainly well enough to pass, get that 75. And I surprised myself at that range. So it wasn't like, oh, yeah, I'm just that kind of person. I expect to get in the 90s. So it was a happy surprise, but not something that I planned for or thought, oh, I'm definitely, that. And that's what I'm aiming for. So,
still, w I would bet money. I mean, where you essentially spent 2 hours a day with your review course and that's it,
mhm.
to score that high, I bet I bet you'd be shocked. Like most if you took most scores of like 95 or 96,
I don't know.
I would bet money that pretty much every person was studying like 6 to 8 hours a day to get that score. Like
Which just gets me
that's
like a heart
really
attack
high.
thinking about that. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. That is not what I wanted in any way. So I'm glad I didn't take that route,
Wow.
giving over
And
your
it's
life.
funny,
No, I was still working, still had my son,
yeah,
did not want or need to spend that much time. Yeah.
no, that's awesome. Um, oh, the weekends was one of my last questions. Did
Yeah.
you study a little longer on the weekends, or what'd you try to do for the on the weekends?
Yeah. Um, if you have a partner or like a significant other that you're with or even a roommate, they're kind of in this with you. So our agreement was Sundays I could take as long as I needed in the morning. So I would that was my day to kind of sleep in a little bit, but I would still do the full extended amount of time. So I'd wake up 8 and try to be done by 11, do a 3-hour session would be the longest. And then definitely on the weekends, I was doing, I'm like on my phone more because I'm not doing my day job. And I would do way more quizzes during the day, that sort of thing. Um, my son's 4 and he got really tired of me saying, I'm sorry, I have to finish this quiz. He was like, done with that. I don't want to hear about quizzes anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, but so that was my biggest session during the week. Sundays were like this magical time where I could just be locked away outside of my, real world responsibilities for a while and just focus on what I needed to do. Um, but life intervenes, and I should say I tried to do 2 hours every day, but sometimes I still had to get up with my son. So if he was up at 5:30 that day, sorry, I didn't get it
Yeah.
in, and I had to make it up later. So it's not that I had every freedom in the world. I think that's not realistic. None of us, even without kids, have that happen. So that still happens. That still very much happened to me. And we would travel, we would do whatever, and things got out of routine. So it doesn't have to be a perfect thing. That's why I started this visual tracker. Is that even if one day you don't get it, you shouldn't feel discouraged or like, oh, now my routine is shot. I'm not going to pass. I should delay this whole thing. It's the overall momentum of over time, all these hours, all these days, like, you kinda see it visually and you're like, "Yes, look, over this, whatever, 5-week period, I got a lot of studying," and you can visually see it. That helped me anyway. I'm a visual
Yeah.
motivation person, and I think that's just something like, to remember when we have these busy lives with things that come up unexpectedly all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, can you just go into your visual tracker? Is that just on a piece of paper, or what were you actually doing?
Yeah, I got it, through a blogger. It's basically a circle for every day of the year. So imagine it that way, like one little circle to fill in. And I told myself I would fill it in with a full circle if I got a good 2-hour session in. Don't count anything for the minis. Like I said, that was just a daily thing I was doing no matter what. But if I got that 2-hour session in, I'd fill in the whole circle. If for some reason it got delayed or, it wasn't really that session, I'd just fill in a half circle. So like, yes, you still get some credit for it. And you look over that, over 6 months it was for me, but you could do it for however long it took you. It's really powerful. It shows you so much of, like, what you've invested in this, and, again, the overall pattern was that I was studying a lot, even if one day was blank, it was you just move
Yeah.
on, go to the next one. Yeah,
Okay. So just a super simple one circle a day, and you
exactly. 1
basically
tick
filled it
paper,
in according to a kind of an
I just
arbitrary
came up with, yeah,
percentage.
exactly,
Yeah.
whatever I assessed it to be. That's how I did it.
Yeah. I like
Yeah,
that idea.
mhm.
I might even have to like make a printout because I do
I
have
think
that
you
one
should.
free
It's a
printout
great
thing
idea.
that's put in the good things that will happen and the bad
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
But
Definitely.
that's a good idea.
It is a good idea. You should do that. I think that would fit really well.
And I can say the person that gave me this idea scored in the 90s on her exams.
Right. Yeah.
But
Go for
try it.
it. Yep.
Um, yeah, that's I don't know. That's possibly I talked to a few people who've scored in the 90s, but I mean, typically, because like my scores were 70. I mean, I think I got an 80 something on my my
Mhm.
one retake, but other than that, I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like barely below 80s.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I've never tried to say like this will help you win the Elijah Sells Award. Like this is
Right.
strictly get these done as fast as
Get you done
possible
as fast
type
as
thing.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I would 100%, jive with, was on board with, and succeeded with. So I'm just very thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so can you do you mind telling me what exactly were your bullet points on the little thing on your phone for the whole day or
Yeah.
that you kept on there?
Do I still have it up? I might have taken it. Nope, I still got it. Okay, so there's 6 things. So a doable daily study routine. So 2-hour main session plus minis. That's the first line. 2, planting the seeds for new lessons.
Okay.
3, capture the understanding. 4, spend 80% of your time doing what you actually need, which is, I think you say, like, doing what you're actually gonna take the test on, something like that.
Hmm.
5, re-review. You said, that's a trigger word that meant a lot to me. And then 6 is 80/20 for final review. That's
Nice.
that's what I have here on the top of my phone for very many
Okay.
months. I apparently still do, even though I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just your essentials.
Yeah. Oh no, that's awesome. And it's yeah, good for you for just I don't know. There's one of the biggest things that I struggle with customers is, like, okay, you bought this, but and then now you're asking me stuff that's like clearly explained in the pro videos.
Uh-huh.
Like, go in there,
Yeah.
watch those videos, and it's
Mhm.
almost if someone when I'm doing these interviews and someone's kind of repeating back to me the strategies one by one, and they've almost always, just kind of crushed the exams,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't that big of a deal for them. They just
Mhm.
did it and it worked and they passed. And then, yeah, the issues come in where it's like, okay, just try it my way like once
Yeah.
and get to where you have that process down, and then you can
Mhm.
start making customizations.
Yeah.
But if you're just kind of stabbing in the dark with, there's a lot of things you could kind of try, or if you're always switching what you're doing when you study,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's,
Absolutely. You spend more time trying to figure out, is this the right thing I should be doing with my time? Wait, what was I supposed to be doing today? All of that
yeah.
mental clutter. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. So, on the last point, the final review. So, how did you do that? How long did you
Yeah.
leave, and what would you actually do?
Well, we're gonna leave out the last exam where the whole thing felt like a final review. I just didn't have that much time, and I was just literally, because I was sick in the middle of it, I just put blind faith. I didn't even know if I was ready or not, but I I was. Spoiler alert. So the main way I would do it is, I would say, for maybe the last 10 days. I don't know if that's your system necessarily, but I would kind of think, okay, I've got 10 days left. And first I would make sure that I had done, like, as close to 90% of all the MCQs as possible by that point. And if I didn't, I would just do a lot more. I'd ramp up the quantity I was doing. But I tried to aim for that, like, by 10 days through, I should have gotten like 90% of all the MCQs in front of my eyes one time. Um, and then I would do the 2-hour sessions became all re-review. Just like you said, it's kind of like two sets of 30, but I was really hammering in on those note cards and, like, adding lots of little last minute notes, or, rewriting one that never made sense to me, just so I had it one time, like, this is what makes sense to me. I'm going to look at it once more on um, test day. I would try to get through the audio notes one time in that 10-day period. I would listen them
Mhm.
all over again. Um, and I held on to those review notes. Like, once I had read the textbook once, that was, like I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't read it anymore. That was just kind of a system for me to kind of intake knowledge in a visual way, along with all these other ways. But those review notes I would have with me constantly in the last 10 days. I would go, like, I remember I got my hair cut in that last week at one point, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to chat today. I'm just going to be holding these and, like, looking at them, because
That's
having
funny.
that fresh knowledge, putting it in the front of your working
Yes.
memory is so
Yeah.
effective. And, they put that down. They say, well, you're not really learning it then. I'm like, no, I've learned it for 5 weeks. Now, this last time, this is to put it in the working memory. So I would
Mhm.
absolutely do that. And the review notes are just short enough that they let you do that easily. Like, okay, I might have gone way more in depth on these topics at some point, but really what I need to remember is, what are the topics that I'm going to be seeing, and get those back in my mind. I tried not to do Sims in that last 10 days. If I was going to work through Sims, I would try to do them earlier, because, um, again, for me, the Sims were more about understanding what was coming for me. What was I going to be faced with? And those last couple weeks are, get that re-review as fresh as possible. So I would do that pretty much for every day. I wasn't adding any
Yeah.
new topic point. I was already through everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just a great summary. And it's totally true. I think you can make a 10 to 20 point difference with that re-review
Oh,
strategy in the last few days, getting everything
I
in your short-term memory, working memory, whatever you want to call it. That's yeah,
yeah,
just this huge yeah. We're not
totally agree.
neuroscientists, but guarantee that
Yep,
there's something to that.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at your
Sure.
email to see if we missed anything.
Okay.
Did you have any other strategies that you felt like were key that was part of what you did that we didn't talk about?
Yeah. Let me think about that. I don't think so. I kind of just took what you offered through the structure of your program and all the materials that I had through your program. And even if you're just telling yourself, I need to get my money's worth, right? Like, even if that's where you start with this because you're investing in it on top of maybe some other software, that spending more time with those materials gets you better use of that investment. And for me, that wasn't the driver, but I knew that this layering approach was the only way. The bashing through it one thing at a time and then 20 units in having to take a test on unit 1 was never gonna
Yeah.
work for me. So, um, that layering of concept is the first thing. The second one was making it as easy as possible to get to the right answer while letting go of the ego of, "I don't know what the right answer is the first time around." Like, figure out what it is. Keep your note cards with you or have, like, your textbook there, or like I said, my software would immediately pop up with a description of what the correct answer was, and, making that as easy as possible to kind of get that voice out of your head made a huge difference for me in my, um where my mental spinning was happening for the whole thing. And then, yeah, for motivation, just realizing there was a life after, and I wasn't having to give up everything or even anything really important during this time because I just got up early and put the time in there and then kept this list for myself, kept this visual of how far I'd come. And um, after that first exam and the system worked for me, I could let go of like any other, oh, should I be doing something different? I just put the end goal in mind and backward planned from there, basically. And that combination really worked for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. That's a cool story though, because you again just got the process down. You put in the time every morning,
I
made
did.
that sacrifice. But other
Mhm.
than that, it wasn't this big nightmare and you crushed the exams. So yeah, congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. It feels so good. I'm what, a month out? Yeah. I feel like a fresh person, new goals on the horizon. So it feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember just feeling a tangible like we said earlier, like the relief or several times through the day I'd be at work and just think, work's all I have to do now. Like this is
Yeah.
so easy,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's like having a to-do list on the back of your mind for however many months, and then finally not having that to-do item or a to-do item on the back of your mind for 6, 18 months, and then finally not having it lingering in the back of your mind clears a lot of space. It
Yeah.
does feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I always end with what's your top 3 tips, but you just kind of did that
Oh,
summary,
yes.
so we'll just
Yeah.
kinda leave it there. So,
Okay, great.
yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm glad you emailed me so that we could set this up and do this. It was awesome to hear your
Yeah.
story firsthand. And,
Awesome.
yeah, I didn't know you didn't mention that in your email that you scored in the 90s. I cannot
I
believe that
did.
FAR
Yeah.
score. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So on
That's
BEC
good.
even, the 3-week study, you got in the
I think
90s?
I got a 93. I had them up in front of me because I was gonna say that. Yeah. I got a 94 on odd, that first one. Then I got a I got a 93 on reg, that's the first one. Then I took odd 94, 96 on FAR, and 93 on BEC. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, if there was some way to tell, like, across all candidates how much study time
Mhm.
they put in and what they scored, yeah, I would put money on you to be like, least amount of time for the highest score. Like, that is nuts.
Well, you're the expert, and that's good to hear because that was my goal, was not to spend any more time than necessary. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Let me just one kind of feedback question, just in your own words, what would be like the top one or two benefits you got from SuperfastCPA? CPA?
Okay, great. Um, I think so. What drew me into SuperfastCPA and proved itself every single day that I was doing it was that the time you put in every hour was valuable. It directly correlated with execution of those exams. There was no waste. There's no waste in the program. And that gave me the motivation to do it. Okay, the system is, yes, I have to get up by 5, but man, those hours are, every part of it is meaningful. And like I said, I just didn't watch any videos, did not do anything outside of that I didn't have to do. Um, and that's a big relief and guidepost for what you have to put in a lot of time for, but that the time is a direct correlation to you getting that exam done. So that's the first thing. And the second one was just your, like, I don't know how to describe it. The breadth of what you offer is amazing, from these podcasts, YouTube videos, um, one-liner strategies that you can just recall easily. They're easy to understand and to come up with in your, unmotivated moments. Audio, reading, quizzes, it's just this atmosphere that you build where it's hard not to soak in the good systems and methodology that you've seen work for lots of people. And by even just tangentially, if you buy one product or you buy all of them, you get access to all of that. And it just felt like I was constantly coming up with, like, that's another thing I can add to what I'm trying. And it's just the value is immeasurable, and easy to access regardless of what your learning style is. You can come at it from any of those different angles, or as I suggest, all of them, because it really
Yeah.
helped. And I think you set it up to be so meaningful for people like that, and so valuable. I truly meant thank you when I sent that. I don't know if I could have done it at all, and I certainly would have been still doing it at this point if I hadn't found SuperfastCPA. So, having it behind me is a big product of the program you put together. So, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
good to hear. And you're quite the success story. That's awesome. So,
yeah.
yeah, congrats again on being done, and I'm glad it
Thank
worked.
you.
So,
It did.
yeah.
It did. Thank you.
All right, so that was the interview with Molly. If that was your first time listening to it, I would highly recommend that you go back and listen to it a second and even third time. It's very valuable, very informative, and she just shares a lot of really helpful insights that will help your own study process become much more effective and productive. So if you did find this interview helpful, which I'm sure that you did, take a second, share it with someone else who you know that is also working on their CPA exams, because they will also find it incredibly helpful. So thanks for watching or listening, and we will see you on the next episode.